checking out another episode of the Growl Podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. If you have not hit the subscribe button, I wonder what's wrong with you in the head. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Share it with your friends, please. Today I'm joined with a couple of bandmates of mine. I will let them introduce themselves real quick here. To my right, I have Mr. Jason Ellsworth.
Yes, Jason Ellsworth, and I am with Chad in not one, not two, but three bands. We are in Angerot together. We are in Suffer together, and we are in Empty Throne together. So we have a lengthy history of about 30 some odd years together playing music. So
And
salute.
Rock on. Thanks for joining me. And to his right, I have Mr. William Zaugg.
Mr. Bill Zaugg. How's it going? Bass player of Angerot, former bass player of Suffer, former other things along with Chad, but current podcast enthusiast.
Rock on. I appreciate you guys joining me. Reason I have these two guys on with me here tonight is we kind of have a pretty, at this point, a pretty long history with our current guest, and kind of view him as our, well, at this point it'd be fourth member. Used to be our fifth member.
Yep.
But kind of an integral part of what we have done for the last handful of years, and thought it was a good opportunity to kind of sit down and get to know him on a different level as well as a business level. So, Mr. Andreas Linnemann, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Thank you, guys, for having me.
And we should add, coming from Denmark, so it's about 12:52 a.m. in the morning, so thanks for staying up, Andreas.
That's cool.
He's got the sleeping toddler in the next room, so he's whispering.
Yeah.
And bear with me if I get tongue-tied.
Yeah, if you fall asleep, we'll
Yeah, you can edit around
we'll-
that, right?
yeah.
Chad can growl at you if you fall asleep.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
I guess starting in with some rather recent things with you. It has been probably, I'm guessing, 3 years or whatever, but you became a father.
Mm-hmm.
It is something we've all experienced in our lifetime, and know that there probably isn't a single greater life-changing event than having a child. And tell me a little bit about how that's changed for you, and in your experience in the kind of emotional side of what life is now with a child.
Yeah, so my kid is 4 years now, and I was a producer before for several years, and used to have just very, very long work days, as you do when you're just free to roam on your own. Could often have 12 plus hours of days in the studio, just working all over the place. And one of the great things I feel becoming a father is just getting such focus that I could imagine I was capable of. Basically being able to do the same amount of work, but in half the time, because I had obligations with family life and picking my kid up at daycare and just having a family, making that everyday life come together. So that definitely gave me a whole another set of skills to focus,
Right.
getting to the core elements of what things are important to spend time on, and things that can go on the wayside. So you maximize the time you spend in the studio on the most important things, and you figure out that time away from the studio and from audio in general inspires you as much as being in it. You come back to it with fresh perspective, and sometimes just focusing on something away from work can leave you to coming up with new ways to solve problems you meet, or just coming up with fresh ideas to throw at the people you work with, or just with your workflow in general. So I think that's probably been the main takeaway. Besides, of course, just the wonderful experience of being a dad and
Right.
everything that comes with that. But you guys know that.
Yeah. I think you kind of hit it on the head. For me, really, it's like I take on a lot of work, between, music, the podcast, and my actual work. And my kids are a little bit older now, but you find that you have to really focus. And, I always think, man, if I had the focus that I have now, if I would have had that 15 years ago, the shit I could have gotten done, because it's like I still find ways to get it all done. Where
Right.
before it was like, was I really just floundering around that much and blowing that much time? Because when you have
Right.
children, it's like, you're running on this little clock
Yep.
and stuff. So yeah, it is. You learn how to be proficient if you want to do anything for a hobby or for like a music based workflow.
I feel like the older I've gotten, like, the more efficient that I've become, and I'm not really sure how. And I think it's the reason is because our time gets less and less. I feel like, as maybe my son's out of the home now, but somehow I've been able to get more efficient in time and almost take on more. So I don't know. Maybe that should be studied by some scientist or something. But
Well, it's kind of like Andreas, you were saying. It's almost like you prioritize what's important at the time you spend away from family, and kind of categorize it as, like you said, this is important. This can wait, or whatever.
Yeah,
You just, like you said, it brings the focus of prioritizing.
exactly.
Awesome. So we'll take that and then we'll jump way back prior to children, prior to you even doing studio work. What was your childhood like? It's one of those things to where culture wise, I think we're probably more similar than we are different. But with you being halfway around the world, your mind leaves that void of what is it like growing up in your part of the world. I'm sure you're probably like, well, normal, because I don't know what's like in your world. But what were you into as a kid? What kind of hobbies were you into?
I guess at a very young age, I was into everything that everybody else was into. Was like into playing football, and I swam a lot, and just maybe video games. I mean, I'm the generation of the first consoles, like
Yes.
Nintendo systems and the first PlayStation and stuff like that.
So how old are you?
I'm 37.
Jeez,
Yeah.
you're a young one.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
We're all over here like, oh fuck.
I mean, you hit a certain age and it just feels like now I'm an adult, and I guess
Yep.
I'm just the guy I am. I'm not gonna change much, maybe, but
Yep, you do stop changing, I think, after you get into that pocket.
Yeah.
It's like I still feel like the same person, from
for sure.
25 years ago. So.
I play with a few guys in my band that are maybe 10 years older than I am, and that doesn't feel any different than playing with guys my age, or so to say. But yeah.
Yeah, I have played with done the younger route, like gone with guys younger than me, and I do notice that difference.
Sure.
Getting into the 20 somethings, it's like, man, the 20 somethings are not what they were when I was 20 something. Like, times have changed quite a bit.
For sure.
So what led to like your musical addiction? Was it playing in bands first? I'm assuming that's the way it went, is playing in bands and then becoming interested in, engineering after that fact. So what was that journey like for you?
Yes, for sure. As a kid, of course you come into music at all different angles, and I think what really put me on that journey was I made a new friend when I was like 10 or 11, and he introduced me to the grunge era rock. So Nirvana and stuff like that, and we really went into that a lot. So that was like my jumping off point, is that early 90s sound. And I have a couple of older brothers who were young when that stuff came out. So they were really good at like lending me CDs from their collection. Like, hey, check this out. This is Helmet. Okay, cool. What's that like? This is Machine Head. Check this out. Stuff like that. So I really got into music fast when I approached it from something that really resonated with me, which was hard rock and more aggressive extreme music. And that's around the same time I started playing music myself. I'm a drummer originally, and it was just like all consuming at one point. Just if I'm not playing, I'm listening to music. I'm researching bands, and that at that time that was getting like an encyclopedia, and just reading pages and biographies of bands, and going to the music store and picking up CDs to check it out and stuff like that. So it became like my personality at an early point, where everything I did was music related in some way. And coming from a very, very small town here in Denmark, where it's like maybe 5,000 or 6,000 people.
Oh, wow.
There's not a lot of people to play music with,
Right.
even though we have a pretty strong musical program here in Denmark for teaching music and stuff like that. Finding someone to connect with harder rock music and metal stuff was like untenable. You couldn't find anyone who was willing to play. So I definitely went more in the rock and indie direction in my early playing years, and it was until I got much older that I got the opportunity to work with more extreme genres as a player. And I went to university here in Denmark, and took a degree in something called audio design, which I finished about 10 years ago. And part of that was doing an internship. So I went and did an internship at a local studio in Aarhus, which is a bigger city, the second biggest city here in Denmark, which is not too far from where I grew up. And the owner was a really, really supportive guy. And after I finished my internship, he just let me know that if I wanted to freelance at the studio, I could do that if I wanted to, and bring bands in and stuff like that. So around 10 years, 10 years ago, I really got into producing records and coming at it from that direction. Rather than playing myself, I was trying to get the best out of other people and trying to figure out how these records that I've always loved and listened to a million times were put together, and listening to them in a whole different light, coming from a production perspective. So that was really exciting. And after that studio closed, I moved to another space that was rented by a couple guys who did mostly post-production, as like commercial sound design for TV series and stuff like that, and convinced them to let me use the studio space as a recording space as well, because it had amazing rooms that were just not utilized at all. And that's where I cut my first metal records, and struck up a connection with Baest that was our connection as well.
Right.
And I had gotten really into HM2 sounds, early Swedish death metal sounds, and I was just like, this thing seems to have just passed me by without knowing it, because like Denmark's always had a strong death metal scene with a definitely a different kind of sound than the Swedish or German or UK death metal sound. It's much more groovy based. And growing up, it didn't really resonate too much with me. But when I hit that Swedish style of death metal, I was like, where has this been all my life? I know I had listened to Entombed and Dismembered and that kind of stuff, but it was just like any other band. But suddenly I was like, okay, there's actually this pedal doing the sound that I can go down and get. So I went up and picked out my first HM2 and just went crazy. And that's when I struck up a connection with the Baest guys, and there were like just a new band at that point, like maybe under a year old, and we're looking for a guy who wasn't established, because we definitely have some really talented and very famous Danish producers in the metal genres, like Tumessen and Jakob Bredal and Jakob Hansen, who have done tons of amazing records. But they're trying to carve out some space for themselves and being maybe less like everything else. And that HM2 sound definitely gave them a different kind of pedigree that Danish metal scene hadn't seen or hadn't had for forever. And we made an EP together, and I didn't think much of it, but they blew up here in Denmark like crazy. So that led to another record, and other bands coming by and saying, "Hey, we heard that EP. We want to do some recordings with you," and that kind of snowballed into where I am now, where I've been doing it for almost 10 years. A lot of metal, a lot of other stuff, but like 80 to 20%. 80% is metal, 20% is other work. So
right. Well, you do a really good job at it, and I think, sometimes it's almost like the stars align right, because their adaptation of what the HM2 sound is unique in its own right. It's a lot of bands when they utilize an HM2, I think mentally they're also head wrapping around what it was in 1992.
Right.
And so it's more than just like, okay, we're using the pedal, but we're also then trying to mirror what happened in 92, 94, or whatever. And I think with Baest, it was a little different than that. Like their delivery was different. And then lining up with someone like yourself with fresh ears, it was kind of a match made in heaven that worked to deliver a really fresh sound. And I think from our perspective, when we heard it, it was just like, damn, it does have that classic roar, but at the same time, there's something really new about it. And I think that is probably testament to your skill set, but it really worked well with their talents and their writing style, I think. So.
Yeah, I guess when I first heard it, correct me if I'm wrong, Andreas, from your memory, but I can still remember coming across the Crosshore song, and just I feel like I sent it to Chad, and it was just like, I mean, it's that old school sensibility with the modern production. That's the simple way of saying it. That just, I don't think I had quite heard up to that point. Classic HM2 in a different light with modern sensibilities. That's what I think of when I first heard that, and I'm like, when we started Angerot, it's something that we've never done. All being fans of that Swedish genre, the HM2 genre, it was the next step after our last band that we decided to do, and we went to the original source of producer on our first album, but I mean, finding you has just been this blessing that we've been able to enjoy and will continue to enjoy. So we thank you.
But I think we were looking for the same, really, when you say that now, it almost resonates to what we were talking about, is like, well, we want to do this, but how do you accomplish this and still sound fresh? Because our first record was what it was, but it didn't sound fresh.
Right. No, because we did exactly what we set out to do with the first one, which was go to the source of Skogsberg, and we did that. And then it was, how do you get that to sound better? Mm-hmm. And I remember Jason sending me Baest, and I was like, okay, how do we get a hold of this guy? How does this happen? And these guys got the ball rolling to contact you.
And I don't remember how I did that.
I don't remember either, but
I was determined.
It's also crazy to hear you say you've been doing this 10 years on your own. We've been with you for at least half of that now.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
So on that topic, then, so you worked with Baest and got the EP out. Obviously, they took a ladder pretty quick, well, deservedly so. And you talked about how other bands kind of keyed in on that. How quickly did that happen, and you know, how much of that did you see as a result of their initial of hitting the market?
I think it took about a year or so for bands to start coming by. That EP really connected with a lot of people, and it was this interesting thing because they're a really, really good live band, and they really like got a following just based on that EP that came out in 2016, and were able to purvey an idea of them being a bigger band than they were at that point, and just sounding fresh to a lot of people here. So bands, even bands who weren't like interested in the HM2 sound at all, were like, just, this feels like lightning in a bottle. We want to connect to this in some way. So definitely about a year later, or maybe towards the beginning of 2018, the ball got rolling a lot quicker as that band was blowing up. My name sort of got out there as well. And they were like super hardworking guys, and they've always been that way. And so maybe a little more than a year after we cut that EP, we were doing a full-length album. And we were recording that in 2017, in the autumn of 2017. There were no talks about label release or any grand visions of touring the world or anything. We were just like, these are our greatest songs. We have this vision of this underworld we want to have connected through the lyrics and the theme of the record and the artwork and everything. It was just like so inspiring to work with ambitious guys in the metal scene, where I've met tons of ambitious folks in other genres, but metal was sort of like, at least in Denmark, looked down upon a little. So I definitely think they were able to kick in the door for a lot of bands in the way that people took themselves more seriously and could view their craft as metal bands more seriously, and actually consider it an avenue of worth pursuing, and not just becoming like just a once a week practice band that plays 2 shows a year, but actually blowing up to something bigger than that. So they were definitely my ambassadors in those first years, and I got to work on a lot of great releases with them. And of course, they took a lot of influence from the Swedish scene, and they are great fans of Bloodbath, who of course sort of brought around the second wave of HM2 sounds in the late 90s, early 2000s. At least that's how I regard them.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. They definitely lit the fire again.
Yeah.
On that. So at what point, assuming this is what you do full time, that's your sole income for yourself?
I work for the Danish broadcasting company here in Denmark as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I've been able to balance that because, as you know, working in niche music is not really always a commercial.
It's hills and valleys.
Yeah, for sure.
So
so I've been fortunate enough to have like some flexible, steady work on the side that has allowed me to take off time to go tour or do 2 weeks of recording with a band, stuff like that. So, but it's
having a job where you can lock into security with your job, where the job still gives you freedom, is kind of that conduit to make anything work with being music related. If you can't find that to where you can get your little bit of free time, a little bit of whatever, I think it kind of kills you as a musician or anything relating to it. So I find this is always a curiosity question with whoever I talk to, if they've been in music for a long time, is how can you manage to be a musician? Because I know you don't make shit for money and still have a house or raise a family or do any of those things, is to find that niche job that accepts you for your absences and understands your dedication, So
The bands are the same way. I mean,
Yeah.
they're teachers. They work in daycare. They do all kinds of stuff. One of the guitar players from Baest is a woodcutter, a forester, and
Oh, really?
yeah. So
It's just crazy.
yeah, but
Finding out what everybody does for a living,
yeah, exactly.
because you just have that childhood perception of, well, they play in a band.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Right.
And that's 99% of the people are go home and go to work.
Exactly. Of course, the time I've been in the music business has, of course, been the time of streaming services and diminishing revenues for bands in all regards. So, of course, many of the bands I work with are niche musicians that work in extreme genres, and they're happy if they can make anything off of their music.
Right.
And as you know, shows are basically where you get your income. Merch and shows are what's left. So many bands do it as a passion, and I view it the same way. I feel like sometimes I sit in a room with 5 guys who've worked their ass off for 2 years, and I'm basically the only guy getting paid to work on their music at any point. So I definitely don't take that for granted, and try in small ways to give back to that in some capacity if I can.
I think you definitely do, because it's, I can speak for myself, is I've worked with a good handful of engineers through time and producers, and I will happily pay to see my dream come to fruition. And it's, when you talk about putting, several years of your life into a project, that it really isn't complete until you have that product in your hand, and without someone who's competent and, willing to listen and do what it takes to understand what the band is trying to deliver, that project is fruitless. So to land on, that's why I think it's such a blessing that we were able to connect with you, is it is really hard to find a producer who will understand your vision when you're sitting here trying to put words and describe sound, to someone who's willing and able to connect those dots.
And that's involved in metal, because we've worked with some people, that not everybody's into death metal, obviously, and there's some really good producers that work on music that are, they don't. You try to explain to them, to kind of get an idea off the ground, because there's always that starting point when it comes to mixing, and you're always kind of hoping that, okay, where are we going to be at? Because it's up to us to give you the best tracks that we can, and then that's the magic, But sometimes when working with other people, it's like, it's kind of a struggle to get to that point, and you having that background means a great deal to us and to help see our vision. And that's why we call you the extra member, 4th, 5th member, whatever you are, because your vision is every bit as important as ours when it comes to the sound and anything in general, and that's how we view it.
Well, to give you a little insight, before we hooked up with you, we got a mix back for that first record that we worked with you on. And I think we all just looked at each other.
Well, I think it was one song.
One song. And it was like, your shoulders just drop. You're just like, because you've put so much into it, and the vision on the other side didn't understand it. And it's no fault of theirs, right? I mean, because
I was just gonna say,
he's a accredited producer.
That's what I was gonna say.
He's done a lot of cool shit. Yeah,
it's almost like hitting the match at the exact right time, because he was a very well-known producer. We just weren't excited about it, but maybe the timing of where you were at with yours, and also, like you said, just kind of discovering that HM2 and really starting to work with it for a few years was the perfect. It's just timing.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact, I can say this for everybody in the room. When we got your first mix back, we all sat there like, "Oh my god, this is the closest thing to exactly what we were thinking in our heads that we've ever heard on a first mix," which is just, there's not really words for that.
I went like this. Yeah, it was just great. I think too, this, like, we'll go way back to the origins of extreme music. Is working in a band, you see the importance of it, but I think it's kind of a lost, and I've mentioned it before on other podcasts, the importance when we were growing up, and this is, before your time, but we would specifically buy records because they were produced by certain people. You'd buy the Burns records, you'd buy the Richardson records, you'd buy, even if you'd never heard of the band, you'd know like that producer would put out some shit that you want to hear and has the talent to put this style of music on tape the right way.
Yep.
And finding that even today is still really, really difficult, especially with, I think the hard part, and you move into this, we'll kind of ease into this topic, is when you get into the technology of today, you can produce in your basement. You don't need to find people like the Andreases of the world, but the reason you do is because getting a producer who can produce material that doesn't sound sterile, that doesn't sound technologically flat,
right,
that it has life and it has energy and it has charisma in sound, is.
So if you're willing to give the world your secrets, no,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
But I mean, do you agree?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like
I can get a bit obsessive about that kind of stuff.
And it shows. It shows.
I mean, I feel there's not a perfect sound to a record, but there's definitely a point where you feel like the vision's understood, and I really welcome the collaboration between a band and a producer. I think that's where the magic happens, because I'm fresh ears to a project. I come at it where the band has worked on these songs for years. They've created a vision of how this is going to come together, and really what makes the record come together is somewhere between where the producer's ears are at and where the band's vision is at. And I definitely have a vision for how I want records to feel, not as much sound, because records can sound in a million ways with the same source tracks. But the way I want to hear a record definitely comes back to those early master guys like Scott Burns and Colin Richardson, stuff like that, where there's a mystique and there's a depth and there's an atmosphere to listening to a metal record that's more important than the sonic perfection of everything.
Correct. I agree. So when you get a new project, band comes to you and says, "Hey, we want to use you, whatever, here's our source files." What's your approach? Do you kind of just take and listen to these raw files and like you mentioned, get a vision for what this should sound like, or what's your research process for when you get a new band?
Typically it's talking with bands before listening to anything. I mean, I'll listen to the tracks and sort of get a sense of where they're going, and I'll have some impulse to take it somewhere, and I'll make sure to try and find out if my ideas are resonating with the band. And I feel like with our collaboration, you were really very hands off. You're like, we've going for this modern HM2 influenced sound. We have these amazing vocalists coming in. We want to hear your take on it. And with your project, I definitely heard those like more gothic inspirations, coming through with the keyboards and choir tracks you put on, but also like just the majestic size of everything. It's like this can't be like a small thing. This needs to be like a huge, expansive kind of weighty production thing. So it's very individual per band, and I always try to find a way to bring their vision out the most. So my productions will sound very different from each other and vary from project to project, but it will usually be the band will tell me this is the closest we've ever felt to how we want it to sound. So that's the most important thing to me, is just like making sure that the band can hear their own vision and feels like it represents where they want to go as a band. So yeah, that's the vision part of it, at least. And then it comes to all the technicalities and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have to be extremely versatile to the what you're doing, because you're working with artists like us who's recording just for clarification for people watching this, that you're working with two types of bands really at the end of the day. And that's how I see it. You're working with bands like us that track ourselves. We track all of the instrumentation and the vocals and send you the files. And then you have, I don't know what percentage, you work with bands in your own studio space and record them yourself. So you're getting so many different source files to work with from all these different bands. And then you have your own way of doing your own source files, obviously. So that is got to be a major challenge. And that's why I personally take it to heart to give you the best files I can to make your life a little bit easier.
You're definitely the best, Jay, of all I've worked with. I mean, that's just oh yeah. But I've told him that many times before. I mean, he saved my ass at a few points. I'm like, I mean, where's this lead? I can't find it. You're like, I'm sure I sent it you. Here's the link, and it's right there. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Of course it's there. So I definitely appreciate when I can tell that's there's been put time into everything, and there's somebody at the receiving end whose life will be so much easier if everything's labeled correctly. There's tempo tracks and everything's just like laid out in the way you want. And I mean, that's something I take pride in when I send stuff out. It's like I want to basically take my tracks, put them into a blank session, press play, and it sounds like music. And you can definitely tell where we're going with the sounds. And I think that's when you could tell that, yeah, there's actually vision behind this. I feel like the most frustrated I can get is when bands just send you like a MIDI track and some DIs, and it's like, okay, come up with something. It's like, where
that
we
was going to be my next question. It's like,
can we do that next?
It's got to be, because I don't like your percentages on getting stuff, but getting tracks where you're just like, ah, shit, like really making the job more difficult. But in the same token, then it's got to be incredibly rewarding coming for like a band. I mean, it takes us forever, but to get to that next album and get that thing released and to do those things where you get that gratification and stuff. The thing that I would personally really dig about being an engineer is you're doing that consistently. You're consistently turning out projects for different bands that, knowing how it started to how it sounds when you're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that rewarding for you? I would think it would be.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that if there's an autism in any of us, it's like just finding that spark of inspiration each time you get new tracks. You're like, whew, this is amazing. Once more, I'm digging into the tracks. I think that initial spark at the start is what fuels the whole project, and that's typically where you make your best decisions about where to take the project is that initial getting to know the tracks and setting them up and getting a vision for where you want to take it. I feel like I sometimes don't get ahead of myself because I get so excited about that part of it that sometimes, as you know, Jay, some tracks can fall by the wayside, or like, the whole thing sounds cool, but he missed that one track. And that's just me getting so excited about hearing like the final end vision for what I have in my head. And there's like two sides of production, as you know. There's coming up with things that's the inspiration and just the sheer music of it. But then there's the technical side of it. That's a whole different kind of skill set and focus that requires where you're like, that's can sometimes just feel like work, like triggering kick drums, editing, comping vocal takes and stuff like that. I mean, that can sometimes feels like work, but getting like the vision to come together is like getting a really difficult puzzle where there's like multiple ways to put it together. And when you get to a point where we're like, okay, I can totally see where the picture is now. I just need to fit in these small pieces, and then it'll be amazing. So that's definitely rewarding each time. Also because of the variance of just metal music in general. It's like, to me, it's like one of the truest art forms is in the way that you can combine it with different genres across metal subgenres. You can introduce orchestrations, clean growled parts, clean guitars. I mean, you can go anywhere with metal, and that keeps it very fresh to me.
Yeah. And I think too, and I think metal, I think the reason it stand the test of time almost over every other genre is the tribal aspect of it. Like, it is so from the soul that it resonates with people to a level where once you connect with it, you can't, or it's very, very difficult to disconnect from it. You know, you might take a break from it, but
it's still there.
The way it connects with your soul is just different. You know, I mean, it really lets you kind of unleash, you know, your tribal side, so to speak. You know, like what history has built on music for a long time is aggression and purpose, and I think that's a huge part of what extreme music is.
Do you know how many like mixing, mastering, producing credits you have up to this point? Is that something you keep track of, or not really?
Not really. Yeah. It could be maybe in the hundreds by now of different things, but it's around there. I tried to think about the productions I've done for the past like 2 or 3 years, and was like between 20 and 30 a year in like singles and full releases and EPs and one-offs and productions and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, it would be in the approaching the hundreds by now, and that definitely feels surreal. I mean, yeah.
You call your studio Hop House. So what's the significance of that name, Andreas?
It's a name my wife came up with. Where we live, we have a garage where we're discussing maybe creating a studio space for me there, and she had a dream of planting hop around it for it to just grow across, so it would become this hop house, like a hobbit hole kind of thing. And the name just kind of stuck, and I really love the name because it's not metal in any way. It's not like Skull or Destruction Studio or like Fire and Flame. It's like it could be anything. So that made it stand apart, I think. And it's nice to have my wife provide something directly to what I do, because she's not into metal really, and comes comes at my career, so to say, from a totally different perspective, where of course she's supportive, but doesn't quite understand in detail what the hell I'm doing all day.
Yeah.
So us having that small connection with the name is definitely something that I love.
I know that you've worked with some fairly young bands that we've talked about before. You know, you had some young in age. I mean, what do you feel like? Let's talk over there. Do you feel like the future is in good hands with metal and death metal and stuff like that? Because I think the band that you were telling me about was an all out death metal band, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think it's as I was saying about Baest, the way they kind of opened the door for metal to be viewed as a serious sort of expression here in Denmark definitely brought with it a lot of young bands who were willing to take a chance on going for it, and they sort of looked at what that band was doing with how they were approaching merchandise and playing shows, the level of professionalism that they provided for an audience, resonated with a lot of young bands here. So the scene has been blowing up for these past 5 years, and tons of young bands are coming out and getting signed to um, big labels like Nuclear Blast and Metal Blade, and doing big tours both here in Europe but also stateside, and and there's definitely a new sense of camaraderie in the metal scene here in Denmark that I feel wasn't existing when I was growing up. It was very much like to each their own, and a sort of like zero sum game where we're like, oh, these guys are getting ahead. That means we're not getting the same chances. Instead of looking at it like, okay, what are they doing differently than we are, and how can we approach it in a similar way, and create this thing together where we support each other, even though we might not enjoy each other's music, we can at least support this niche that we're creating and working in together. And
Right.
I feel with this new generation, they just don't care. They just want to play music that they feel connected to, and metal is a great way to connect with, as you mentioned. It's a sort of tribalism, and
Mhm.
in a broader perspective where everything has been very fragmented, or media consumption is very fragmented and very driven by algorithms. The 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 whole ritual of going to a metal show, where it's just like this burst of energy that's just gonna happen right now with these people that you don't know, but you have this sense of a tribal community with, is has definitely been getting its due here.
Right. And I think you mentioned a good point too. And I think generationally, excuse me, we fell into a little bit of a pit with it, is where, if this band's getting big, it's not making enough room for now this band can't get big. And I think it's the opposite of that. And I think what you're seeing in Denmark now as a result of Beast doing these things is it actually creates more room for other bands when certain bands do well. So if this band, take Beast for example, they do well and they bring all this attention to it, they're lifting the ceiling by bringing in more fans, which makes
Oh,
more
absolutely.
other bands have opportunities they wouldn't have before, as opposed to being like, well, if they're popular, we can't be
Right.
popular. So it's getting reshaping that mentality to the way we had it in the early 90s, was the bigger death metal gets, the better we all are.
Yeah.
Right.
Also,
So
you probably, now growing up with it, like you've been playing this stuff for 30 years, that sense of like gatekeeping that was also very prevalent. in metal communities. You've probably sensed that as well, where it's like,
I think so. You're right. I mean, that is definitely there, and I think it still is there. But I think it happens when the genre splits. I think the gatekeeping happens when deathcore gets popular, when screamo gets popular, and death metal guys are like, no, 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 that's not how you do that. But it's almost like another genre. You know, I'm as guilty as that as the next guy. I think is death metal as a death metal purist. You know, but
I don't know. I don't think we really experienced much of that here growing up because, like you said, you grew up in a small town, and here when we were playing, there really wasn't any other death metal. So we're,
it.
punk rock shows, hardcore shows, all of that. So I don't know. I never felt that. I don't know that I've seen it here. I know it happens, of
Yeah.
course.
There was a
course
lot of it
does.
like when you get up into the cities and stuff.
Sure, right. But it wasn't something we personally dealt with a lot here.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen it. It's still weird to me how you look at, say, the town you're in has a certain scene, and then you go 50 miles away and the scene is completely different, and you get a lot of that going on. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think as time has gone, it's gotten more prevalent, just with like the clickiness that social media brings to things. That
for sure.
That
I can see.
Yeah. I did have a question for you regarding. I know Jay's got stuff he wants to ask you, and I keep interrupting, but he's just got to be quicker on the punch. When you over the years, especially since you've gotten your business has picked up and your notoriety's picked up, getting projects in. I know you've probably gotten a few projects where you get it and you're just like super excited about it. For one reason or another, it resonates with you. Tell me about a couple of those projects when you've gotten them where you're just super excited about it.
Basically everything we've done together. At this point,
Good answer.
I think at this point you're probably my favorite death metal band. Really, it's like so ridiculous, but I feel comfortable saying it. It's like if I was to envision myself playing death metal or making death metal for myself, it would sound a lot like Angerot.
Well, you are a drummer, and we need a drummer.
That's right. I mean, we can play online now.
Yeah,
but I feel like those projects have been really exciting because you, of course, come with years of experience and just great playing and really good sense of arrangement and you imbue the music with a lot of drama and aggression and just like powerful feelings that really resonate with me, that come through just the plain tracks coming to me. I can sense that. And of course the features you have been like, I pinch myself like, okay, and now Steve Tucker's track. What the fuck? Okay, here's Derek Roddy's tracks. Amazing. I mean, just getting opportunities to work on that kind of stuff has been really exciting. And I love getting curveballs. I mean, I think my sensibilities lie beyond metal. I love all kinds of metal, but I really dig stuff that throws curveballs at me and leaves me guessing the more experimental kinds of things. And
I think that's probably why we connect really well, because we like to do that as well. Just kind of bend the rules, or just like fuck the rules.
Yeah,
kind of scenario. And if we weren't on the same page between the band and you, it wouldn't work. You know what I mean? It just being you like having the curveballs thrown at you, and us like creating curveballs, to where, because otherwise even the last project just wouldn't have worked, because it's in topic, it's, you can just sense the shit show aspect of it. Like, this could be really ugly really fast,
right?
And without someone who's on the same page, it would have been.
Yeah.
But I think because we're like emotionally locked into the same principle of what we're trying to do, it means as much to you as it does to us, which is the only way that things like that work.
Well, maybe for the sake of the episode, we should talk about seofon really quickly, as far as what that entailed, for somebody that doesn't know what we're talking about here. But Andreas was involved in the last album, Seofon from Angerot, us three Yahoos sitting up here. And that project entailed a guest drummer on not one, but 7 tracks. It ended up being another failed EP attempt, and it developed into 7 tracks. And I guess I'd like to know, so from your standpoint, when we first told you that, Andreas, that we were going to use 7 drummers, I'm sure we didn't give you the names right away. I'd like to know your initial thought was like, this could be really cool, or this is like, oh my God,
This is gonna suck.
how am I gonna compile 7 different drummers of tracks? So I'd like to know your initial reaction when we first presented that to you.
You probably mentioned it in an early episode that I was like, this is so fresh. I've never seen anybody do this before. In my own head, I was like, this is just the greatest reaction to losing a drummer ever. Like such a
oh yeah,
then we just get the 7 best drummers on earth to play. How about that? I definitely knew from like a technical perspective that we would meet some challenges, and without your expertise in just delivering tracks, this would never have gotten off ground. But you were very trusting in my initial vision of like trying to not make it sound like 7 tracks that didn't fit together. We were just like, this goes this direction, this sounds completely different, but actually just having an end product where you can press play and it feels like a coherent experience, and having the variety come through the drum tracks in small ways, but so it's not as significant as the tracks might have lent us to it becoming. But it was very interesting getting tracks where some are recording in a proper recording studio with a professional engineer, and some are just MIDI tracks where there's like, you have to figure out, okay, this is supposed to be a splash here, and this is a right side China, and this is like where it doesn't come up on the right mapping when you throw a kit on it. But I think I set out and told you guys I wanted to make it seem like every drummer had come through a studio and played on a kit where some of the pieces were the same. So that of course lent to some sample replacement of stuff to make sure it was a coherent recording or a listening experience from a listener perspective. Yeah,
it was interesting because the whole concept of the record was perception. So how other people perceive when you deliver, because when we delivered these tracks to each one of these drummers, there was no suggestions, there was no samples, there was no programmed drums, there was nothing. So just throw it in at their direction, and however they perceive it, they throw it back. And to really see how vast the talent scope is, and what, even drumming techniques and styles and perception on how all this thing comes together is so prevalent on this record, that to me, that's what makes this record so crazy unique, is that even though sonically it's very put together, it is so, each track, it just feels so unique, and going from Thomas's track to Roddy's track to, it's just like,
it sounds like
crazy.
It sounds like Angerot. It doesn't sound like you trying to play to a specific drummer's strengths. You've just provided awesome songs, and then do your thing on top of this. So that's,
well, I think that's all due to you. I mean, I think
you're too kind.
I think most other producers would have been like, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah,
and kind of like you said, that's not getting off the ground.
I ain't gonna lie, I had that feeling in the baback of my head that Andreas was gonna be like, yeah, I don't think so. And I wouldn't have blamed you. I would have been like, okay. Because it had the potential of being a shit show. So, but I think everyone being focused and everyone just being very, very good at what they do. Um, I like to think we know what we're doing, but I have all the confidence, and I know we all do have all the confidence in the world in you. And then the drummers that we picked are incredibly talented people. So knowing that what you're going to get, and some of the tracks probably could have been tracked a little bit better, but a lot of these dudes were working with what they had between
Right.
tours or this, that and the other. So, that's where, having the blessing of working with you really made this project what it is. And I am absolutely blown away by what you were able to do with everything and how you put it together. It obviously, for us, when we started talking about it, was like, hey, let's put out this raw. And I know we had this discussion, Andreas, in the beginning, was want the sound to be more unique from the last two records than in line with the last two records, and to have it feel like Garage Days, basically, like, you can get and you can jam, and it has that raw energy. And this for sure does. Like, just, it does sound a little more raw. I mean, it's put together great, but the guitar tone is mean. It's unique. It's very unique.
Yeah. And that's definitely, as we talked about when we initially started out on making the record, I definitely wanted to take it to a more raw, visceral place than previously, where I felt like the past two records we did were like very monolithic in a way, very dense, very heavy, very grand in vision, and this felt like more like just a blow to the face.
Yeah.
And I definitely wanted to see where we could go if we didn't go as far as the first record with Iniquity was, but sort of came back a bit to the roots of that kind of visceral HM2 sound, where it's like just clawing at your face. And I think that, of course, it took some patience for us to fit everything into that mold, with the different tempos and different tracks. And of course, with every record, the production works better with some tracks than others, but it's like finding a middle ground between everything, where it feels like every song is gets off the ground and feels powerful. And I definitely think we got to that point with everything. It's something I'm super proud of, and in terms of you as a band, with the three guys you are now, it's the first record where there are no additional voices on top of yours, Chad. It's just like, it's actually back to a core kind of band of hearing you live.
And there's no orchestration on this one at all either.
Exactly.
Nothing.
So it's like,
Which was intentional.
Don't worry, we'll get back to that.
Well, it was the goal on this one to just really just have it feel more like jam days,
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but with that said, it's kind of, that hybrid of now, how do we take what we just did and roll that into the blending it with what we have done? I think that's going to be the fun part with the next record is it is kind of back to the grind on doing those things. And it'll be interesting. I think it makes me really excited.
Yep.
I get excited every time knowing we're going into another project with you, just what's going to happen. And I always say, and I'll always say this until the day I die, is like, Christmas for me is the first mix back. When you're so burned on listening to raw tracks and how everything is just flat, and then you get your first mix back from Andreas and you're like, now I'm excited again.
I like these songs again.
Honestly, I love the honesty with our collaboration as well, where you're not afraid to tell me, like, elements are sounding good, but it's just not getting to the place we want to take it. And you sort of just let me go off on my own and take another crack at it. You're not like, just like, this fell on the ground, let's try something completely different. You're like very supportive of knowing that it's a process. It may take some tries, and then we'll hit it. But yeah, I feel like if I was just to get feedback, it's like just like, sounds cool. Can you send the master next week? That will feel very flat for me as well.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
being challenged and trying to dig into whatever we're trying to do, and finding something unique at the core of the project for
Yeah,
each
that was
record
going to
we've
be
done together.
something I was gonna ask you too. Is like I would imagine some bands don't communicate very well. We obviously are old, and we've learned through the process. If you don't, you're going to hate it in the end. You're going to look back in 5 years and be like, well, we sold that short. But
Exactly.
you know, in your being on your side, and I know you and I have had this conversation before about handling criticism, um, is a hard pill initially. Being in music in any way, shape, or form, whether you're a vocalist or a producer, is handling critiques and criticism and not taking it personally, but taking it as constructive criticism. You're very, very good at that, but I would assume it's been a learning curve to get to that point.
Some of it is just my personality, I think.
Yeah.
But I definitely I definitely always approach what I'm doing with a humbleness, where I can't be the guy with all the right decisions. I need to be challenged on stuff as well, because there's a better compromise out there than what I'll send the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And but of course, as anybody else, when you first get feedback from something and there's like, this doesn't feel right or something, there's that initial like gut feeling like, fuck this shit, I'm over it. but you can react to that. You can react to that, and then you won't have a career in
Right.
any capacity. You need to like just like come at it from a professional viewpoint and just say, okay, what am I missing here? Is it just a matter of like laying out where we want to take it, or have I missed some cues that we've discussed at some point, or finding some reference tracks that sort of have that thing we're going for, and going towards that, and just like always be appreciative of getting a chance to have another day working with great musicians on creating art, and not taking that for granted. When I talk to bands who've acquired the work of some big name, where it's basically you send off tracks and what you get back is how it's gonna be. You can maybe say turn up the keyboard track a bit, or we'll want to have the right symbol on the left side instead of the right side. But besides that, it's like what you hear is what you get. You've hired this sound, and that's what you're gonna get. And I don't think I get very motivated working like that. I definitely want to have a collaboration each time, and that requires you can take criticism and then and view it as a way to grow as an engineer and as a person, really.
Right. And I would say, I mean, your ability to adjust to what each band needs. I mean, I can speak from our internal stuff. I mean, you've done 3 different bands for ones that I've been in, plus you've done some project stuff for Jay. That take Empty Throne, Angerot, and Suffer. 3 completely different sonic sounds. I mean, they're completely different, and your ability to take and separate, even though it's in essence a lot of the same musicians, to start on that clean slate and just be like, okay, this band needs this. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what you were just talking about. Well, I'm just going to go through and you're coming to my studio because you like this sound, so here it is, and there you go. That you can tell that you approach things, and I'd say most of those projects we didn't really tell you where to go. We just I think
Yeah.
Angerot's probably more dialed just with the history, but
Yeah.
like with Empty Throne and Suffer, I mean, I gave you a little bit of guidance, but the Suffer one, I think we learned a good lesson together, you and I. And that was all on me, is that as a musician working with an engineer, I think a lot of times that intimidation factor of, you guys know more technically, I mean, especially you, that than I could ever understand. I just play guitar and sing. That's all I do. I don't read tablature. I don't understand anything. To get to a point where if something doesn't seem right in my head, to learn how to speak to an engineer or a producer to get to that point, and the communication that has to happen without worrying about offending somebody, to get to that common goal. And, I guess I'm incredibly lucky that your personality is what it is, because I learned a tremendous amount from you during that process on how to verbalize where I'm trying to go with something. And as a result of, kind of rebooting that engine after the first preliminary mix, we ended up with something that I think we were all incredibly happy with in the end. And that communication, is that I owe you for that, because I didn't have that before. Just being, don't be offended, don't be ashamed, to just learn how to connect with your heart on it. And so kudos and many, many thank yous for that, because it's taught me a lot, and I think the projects moving forward benefit from that. So
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
And not getting pissed off at me, at least not publicly.
I mean, frustration is just natural, and it's just not like, don't be afraid of emotions, really. Anger is a strong emotion as well, but it's not very conducive to something creative. I think
Right.
if you just let yourself calm down, it's just like, whew, okay, what I'm actually going for. And I love metaphors. I've probably thrown some at you where you're thinking like, what he's talking about, but yeah, sounds cool. But I love coming at music from just like a narrative or aesthetic perspective, where you're not talking about the nitty gritty of the guitar tones need some more treble, and maybe there's somewhere where the kick drum is not speaking. It's like, let's talk the bigger picture and how it needs to feel, because you can approach the technicalities in a million different ways and get to the same point. But getting that vision to come together requires some flavorful communication sometimes, and I think that's a lot of fun and a lot of challenges. But I think we definitely have that honed in at this point.
We do. And like now it's, I mean, it's like such a relief, really. You get to this term in a relationship, with dealing with someone, especially in any type of band atmosphere. If you can get past those problems in the appropriate ways, I don't care if it's touring in a van or whatever it is, if you can get through them and communicate, the longevity of your relationship is so much easier, just knowing like, okay, well, if I piss Andreas off, we'll all take a breath and we'll get back to zero. So it's great. You've got a knack for it, and your personality definitely is an easy one to communicate with. So
I definitely take pride in not getting bent out of shape about stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it takes a lot to piss me off, and I know we all get passionate about what we do. I definitely get passionate about the stuff I work on. You've sensed that with me, like sending a mix off, and maybe the next day I'll be like, there's gonna be another version coming, because even after I've sent it off, I can't let it go. I need to go back. I need to listen in my car. I need to just live with it, and just like, yeah. And deadlines is like I need to have deadlines, because if there are no deadlines, I'll tinker at it forever, because I get so passionate about it. So I definitely understand it from the band's perspective, so as well, that this is what they care about. I mean, we all go to work. We all punch in, make other people happy, but this is the thing that makes us happy. So we get super passionate about it, and that can sometimes lend to things being put in a way that's not conducive to the working relationship. And for some it takes age, some it's just a personality thing where you sort of have that. And I think I'm fortunate to work with a lot of great bands and a lot of great people, and the feedback I mostly get is as you said, that people feel themselves around me, and can and don't feel bad about putting their passion forward, and and working on that in a collaborative way. So
it's critical. It is critical.
So we've established that you're obviously a drummer and stuff. So what do you currently have going on musically yourself? I know you had and I think you still do, had a sludge metal band. Was it OLM?
Yeah.
And then you've got like an old school death metal band, Kampfwagen. Am I pronouncing that right?
Wow, that's good.
So what do you all have going on musically yourself? Let's take a step away from the producer booth here for a little bit.
I have a bunch of things going on. I think when I hit my early 30s, I was like you. I had no like ideas of conquering the world and touring all over. I was like very, very satisfied about my position, working with great music, but also just having a space where I could pursue music I wanted to make for myself without thinking it had to be really expensive to record, or have to have any commercial perspective. So I just turned it upside down and started creating loads more music for myself. And I've played in Ulm, which it's been called for many years, which is like a sludge doom kind of band that existed for 10 years before I joined. I'm like the 7th or 8th drummer. It's crazy. I mean, it's like a Spinal Tap kind of situation. Nobody's died yet, but
they just disappear.
Yeah, they just disappear. Yeah. What's that film called? That old Charlton Heston movie where they're green something is people. Can you remember?
Soylent Green.
Soylent Green is people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happened to the drummers. But I have that project, and that's undergone some changes. We're actually revamping the band at this moment. We have a lot of music written and have recorded most of our full-length album, which will be the first in that band's career. But we had some personality changes and are like revamping everything. So it'll probably come out sometime this year, hopefully. And I feel very, very proud of what we're creating, and just a friendship that band has given me has been like life-changing. It's weird how that stuff kind of happens sometimes, where you meet people later in life, maybe, and you just find people that you resonate with and connect with in a profound way, and that has been it's been more important than the music we create together. It's just a friendship that I've been able to create through that band. And then besides that, we have Kampvogn. Camp is like a tank in Danish. Fighting wagon would be a direct translation. That's like during COVID-19, it was just like, well, can we do something while just sitting on our asses and waiting for this thing to pass? And of course have a close friendship with Sven, who plays guitar in Baest, and and I just approached him with the idea of doing like an old school bowl thrower kind of death metal band, Danish lyrics, and having it centered around World War One, as I felt like a lot of metal takes inspiration from World War II, but it was coming up on the hundredth year anniversary of of um, of the end of the First World War, and there's just a lot of interesting stories and mythology surrounding First World War. So that got off the ground pretty quickly. I think before we even had a practice, he'd booked 3 shows or something, just because he's well connected. So that was like, I had no idea we were going to be a live playing band, but we got that put together pretty quickly, and has led to some fun experiences. And I think we made a great little record about 2-3 years ago. But it's like, because Sven is touring so much with Baest, and the rest of us guys are busy as well with other things. It's hard getting in a room together and working on music. So it's I would say it's more a project than a band. Where if the time is right, we'll pick up again. We play one-off shows if we get invited, but we say more no than yes to stuff that comes our way, which is cool too. You get exclusive in a way.
Just like bolt thrower.
Just like both of it. Yeah, exactly. And then what do I have besides that? Yeah, we have a project together right now, Jason, where I've gotten your guitar skills on one track for now, which is Grimvale, which is a new project I haven't really shown anyone yet besides you guys who are working on it, which is basically just my own vision for a kind of modern black metal project. So this will be the first time I mention that in any capacity beyond the working relationships I have with the band. Very excited about getting that off the ground. And
yeah, it's awesome. That's all I'll say about it.
You definitely made it awesome. Amazing.
Well, from what I've heard, it sounds very, very promising.
Can't wait to hear more.
Yeah. I'll get you all featured in some capacity, and I hope you'll find time for that.
We would happily make time for you.
So give me a couple of your. I'm just curious here. Just what are a handful of your favorite death metal albums? As 3 or 4, whatever. What are some of your favorites?
I'd say favorites are, Morbid Angel, Covenant is one. I got Blessed Are the Sick is the first one, but Covenant is the one I go back to the most. And of course, a fellow Dane that produced it, Flemming Rasmussen, produced that. So I'm definitely proud of that as well. Carcass Heartwork is definitely one that I feel very strongly about. I'd say Entombed, Left Hand Path is one as well. Of course, the Swedish sound.
I'm always curious when people go back to Entombed, which one they're going to name.
Yep.
Which one's going to be?
I feel like that's the perfect record, really.
Yeah,
I agree.
I like the one
That's
after is mine. I don't know why. I like Clandestine to me is just
it's
or Clandestine, depending on where part of the world you're from.
Yeah.
But God, it is funny too. Like every time Entombed gets brought up, I'm always like leaning in, like which one's it gonna be?
Yeah.
But they are, as much as it's the same band, they're very, very, very different. Like they could be 2 different bands.
Yeah.
Delivering the same deal. So
basically,
I agree, man. Good choices for sure.
I could mention a bunch more, but I feel like those are like the Mount Rushmore kind of records for me.
Yeah.
I know your favorite song because we've talked about that, and we share the love of the same song, and that's not death metal. Remember?
Tell me.
Uh,
It's an Alice in Chains song, right?
It went along with what you said earlier, with growing up on grunge.
Yeah.
It's Nutshell by Alice in Chains, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that song is just like.
It's one of the most haunting,
Yeah.
sad songs. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
You know how much into grunge I am? I have no idea
Yeah,
what
but
the fuck song that is.
Hey.
That's how
Yeah.
they all go.
That's how they
Well,
all go.
that's particularly how that one goes. I think, right? That's that one. God, I hope so.
I think that's
just
pretty,
you saying,
pretty
"Hey."
There's a lot of haze and A's.
Yeah,
stuff
I was
like
gonna
that.
say that's every song.
Chase this better life.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
right,
the
right,
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sing
Awesome.
it, Billy.
Yeah.
I know. I'm
Good job,
right now.
man.
I haven't
Yeah,
had
you're
a
doing
beat
it
yet,
great.
so.
Yeah.
What other
Yeah.
kind of guilty pleasure music stuff? What other stuff do you listen to that's not metal? Do you listen to other stuff besides metal? I assume so.
Yeah. Bunch of stuff. Yeah. I enjoy a lot of 70s music.
Me too.
Yeah. A lot of progressive rock. That's been a huge love of mine as well. Like Yes and Genesis Records. I love everything Peter Gabriel's done is like amazing music to me. I love. I'm into James Taylor stuff as well. I love his old records. Yeah, bunch of stuff. I'm not really like I'm just into music, really, not just like specifically metal or rock. Um, if it feels genuine and well made, I can be into it. What I don't like is like modern pop music.
Yeah,
That doesn't feel like music to me at all. So
it's because it's not. I mean, especially coming from like a producer standpoint. I mean, there is no it. Like there's really no life to produce at that point. You know, you're producing a computer and an auto-tuned singer. So, it to me, I'm always flabbergasted when it comes to like modern pop music, how anything gets popular, because it doesn't resonate at all. It doesn't connect to soul. It doesn't, like, you might get a singer every once in a while who's got a really good voice where they have a single that might kind of pull a bass, but how, you know, when you're going from 5 guys all on an instrument, all working it in a room, to a singular
Entity
that basically is
run by a company.
run by a computer,
Right.
you know, that it doesn't have that feel. And when you talked about, you know, you can listen to anything that's genuine. I'm very much that way with live music. Like going to see bands and stuff, you know, I can go watch anyone play almost any genre of music live because it's real and it has that real feeling. So I this is something I kind of wanted to discuss with you a little bit. As far as producing, I don't even know how I would word it accurately or not, but like you briefly touched on it earlier, where it's like the life has been produced out of so much music that you're erasing the human factor in music by over editing, over sampling, over all these things. Do you find yourself, as you're moving forward with your skill set, of making more room for that human feel, you know, whether it's the little flaws or the little idiosyncrasies in the music, finding a way to make those shine? Do you see yourself kind of leaning towards that at all?
yeah, I definitely do. I mean, what bugs me the most about modern metal is when I can sense that every little edge has been straightened out of the production, like because we have so much processing power in the computer, but now you can sit for endless days and just tinker, picking out resonances and, oh, don't like this little sliver sound, away with that. So you end up with this very like bland kind of product in the end, where definitely you need a sense of rawness and an edge and an aggression to modern metal that needs to be brought back, basically. And the ways I've introduced it is convincing bands not to play to a metronome, for example, which to younger guys, totally foreign because they've grown up maybe not even listening to a guitar through a cabinet, but sitting in front of studio monitors or home speakers playing guitar through a plug-in on their computer. So there's just like this disconnect from the physical aspect of playing music in a room that you need to present to them and introduce them to. And I definitely see it sometimes going out and doing live shows where young bands who have maybe been playing for 2 years and have, as a band, maybe have played 5 shows, show up with in-ears and backtracks on a computer and stuff like that. It's like, what even is this? Can you just plug in and start playing some music? I mean, all this extra stuff seems to just like take the place of good songwriting and arrangement, stuff like that. So I definitely approach it from that perspective, that like letting bands know that there are different ways to do this. We need to make this, we need to put across that aggression because they can't see you play live. They only have the music to listen to on speakers or headphones. So let's not take every life out of it. Let's leave some grit, some mistakes. People won't hear mistakes. They were just hearing character or small pieces they can latch onto. Did you hear that? Can you remember that bum note he did in the solo? That becomes part of a track's history and sometimes notoriety. And so no metronome is definitely one thing that I've put on bands, and relying on real amps, real drums, stuff like that, and not going completely in the box has definitely also been something I've strived for, and also just working with the band together, where it's not just you and one member and then you and the next member, but everybody's there, can give feedback, can cheer on, and we can have the conversations about when not to tinker with takes anymore. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I did something there that wasn't right," and from my perspective, it just had a spark of something that needs to be there. So I'll tell them, we're gonna move on because it had something different that we need to keep in the record. So, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that was
Keep
very
it
well.
feeling alive.
Yeah, very well put. And it's I think probably, in my opinion, has been the single greatest deflating aspect of metal music, if there is anything to say that kind of going, is just erasing the human factor. You know, I mean, there's bands, obviously, and we all know who they are, that are putting out material that is completely not even playable by themselves included. You know, but it's just a race to technology. It's a race to technicality and a complete lack of human emotion and creativity, really.
That was a Chuck Schuldiner quote, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
It's pretty close. Lack of
sure.
human. Sorry, I thought those were some death lyrics for a second. No, I'm just fucking around.
Yeah, but
You're absolutely right.
I'm hoping you're right, and I'm hoping more people see that aspect of it, because for myself, you know, and I think a lot of people that I talk to, it's becoming clear that that is the wall that we're up against. So hopefully, as we move into the future, there's a hunger again for, you know, like you mentioned, the beauty marks that are not necessarily mistakes, but just imperfections that make music sound so right. You know,
that's the human aspect, really. Yeah. I think computers lend us so many abilities that we can't do ourselves, and getting sucked into that kind of world is very dangerous, where you can basically just retake everything forever in your bedroom on your own time, and I don't think that leads to any more good music. It sometimes really sucks the lot of life out of what would have been a good song, and I think sometimes also bands just need to let go really, and say, okay, this got as good as it could get, and the next time we'll do these things differently, and it'll be a different result, and not viewing it as like this is our only chance to do something. I mean, looking at your career, you've been doing this a long time, and maybe 20 years ago you never thought of Angerot. Now you've put out a bunch of releases, and you probably think the next one is going to be even better than the one before it. So when you view it in the long haul, I think that it's very important to see yourself growing as a musician, and letting yourself have growing pains throughout the records you make, so you can look back on them, and sometimes you can't even hear those things when you listen back 2 years later. You're like, what was I fretting about? I can't even hear it now. But yeah, sometimes it feels very important and very overwhelming in the moment. But yeah,
Well, it's a new world for us too. This whole, I mean, as long as we've been playing music, I don't think we. I mean, obviously, we use click tracks kind of because of necessity, because we have, we use guest musicians, and we got guest drummers, so we got to provide them a bass line, so we got to use a click track. But I actually think the first album that we ever use a click track on in our careers was the first Angerot. Am I right?
I think so.
So
did we use one on the first Angerot?
I didn't.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
But I mean, that was 2018
Yeah.
that came. Well, yeah, that came out. So, I mean, we started in the late 80s, early 90s with making music or making albums, demos, whatever you want to call them. So we've spent our first 25 years not using click tracks. So we've had to adapt too. I mean, I think for us it's a fine line of using that tool out of necessity, but keeping it raw and keeping it not to where it's, it makes it stale, that's the hard part, I think, is, and that's what Angerot, Swedish death metal HM2 is raw in nature, and we don't want to ever lose that,
Yeah. And just sorry, Chad. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and just sometimes just tracking, like just from start to finish, punching in a couple places, and just like moving on is very important, and not obsessing over micro details that nobody's ever gonna latch onto anyway. I feel like if you can't get the emotion you want to put across with the music itself, no amount of takes is gonna fix that anyway. So keep it fresh, keep the flow going, and keeping you in the headspace of where you want to put that song or record is more important than getting perfection in takes. I feel like with your production, of course you have metronomes and stuff, but you're not sitting down and editing every little thing to make sure it's on the grid and it's completely, like, you allow it to flow and ebb and have a push and pull feel within the instrumentation. I feel I can definitely sense that when I receive tracks, that I can feel it just resonates with me on an emotional level. So I know it's like how I would have done it when I hear it.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, the push and pull aspect can still be there with the click track.
Exactly.
I guess I never really thought of it in those terms, but my last question is: what is there a producer or two through the years that you kind of sit in the back of your head, you go, what would Colin Richardson have done in this scenario? Or is there any that, are your favorites, I guess? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think I have a bunch. I've sort of accepted that I can't do what they do. Maybe they can do what I do, but we of course hear everything differently. But I definitely enjoy a lot of what Kurt Ballou is doing. He does amazing work, has a signature sound for better and for worse. Colin Richardson is, of course, huge in my world as well, and Scott Burns is. Maybe it sounds dated to in comparison with modern productions, but he got that kind of like emotional essence that these records needed, that makes them infinitely more interesting to listen to, even to this day, than many modern metal releases do. Andy Sneap is, of course, a name I enjoy a lot of work from. Who else is there? That I can. There's probably a bunch I can't think of right now. And of course, I take inspirations from the guys who are here, situated here in Denmark, next to me. And it's nice to have this kind of not competitions, but it's like we're trying to better each other by putting out the best we can, and bettering the community around us. So that's definitely an inspiration as well. It's just like listening to what people are doing in my neck of the woods, and trying to make something that stands up to what they're doing. That
I was just sitting here thinking, in the last 12 months, you, us, and you and I, we've actually put out 4 different albums in about a 12-month calendar time frame, approximately, maybe 13 months.
Wow.
So the Suffer Grand Canvas of the East Heat was last March, I want to say. And then fast forward to December was the Rapid Fusion, Life Elusive. And then Empty Throne, Unholy came out at the end of February. And then the next Angerot, Seofon, comes out July 11th. So we're keeping you busy, man.
I love it. I'm so appreciative of our working relationship, and just the friendship we've been able to make across the ocean.
And we're sitting here thinking, I hope he doesn't get sick of us.
when you mentioned the friendship aspect of it, and I know you kind of touched on it with your band and stuff, how you reach these moments where it's like, okay, it's kind of life changing, and it is, and I think that's why we all play. Is you either have that at some point and you hope to have it again, or you're living in that moment. And I think we're an example of both. Like Angerot is an example of both. So a lot of us started jamming together when we were 15, 16, 17 years old.
Yep.
And so we're talking like 1989, 1990, in those. And I think those friendships that were formed absolutely changed the trajectory of all of our lives. And we were fortunate enough to re-spark that with Angerot, 7-8 years ago, whatever that's been. And then once again, I think it got re-sparked again with our friendship, and then some of the friendship from some of the guests that we've had on records. And I think from our perspective, and I'll speak for myself personally, is probably the single most rewarding reason I do what I do, is because of the people I get to meet, the characters that I get to understand, the influence that they have on me as an individual, and the things that they have to teach me. It's something that is so unique to music that I don't know that there's another thing on the planet that can correlate to that. And it is such a inspirational and influential thing to be a part of. I mean, it's magic. It really is.
I completely agree.
This is our first time, I think, talking on video that's not through a text resource or messenger or something. So we got this far. Now we need to cross the pond, one of us, and get together and have a few beers, huh?
Yeah.
I've been hoping for an Angerot tour in Denmark.
I know.
Or in Europe for years now.
Me too, buddy.
I would probably drive you around or something.
Well, start learning the set list.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. Well, I'll hook you up with some amazing drummer here in Denmark. We definitely have a few that could play your things. But yeah, that would be wonderful. And it's
It would be a
amazing
dream.
to know that should I ever find myself stateside, I know where to come calling.
Oh,
You are
absolutely.
always
Yeah.
welcome here, man.
Of all
Always
places in South Dakota is
Right.
You'd be
amazing. I mean,
so fucking bored you wouldn't know what to do.
sounds like
So-
Denmark in many ways.
Well, man, I know it's incredibly late on your side over there, and I greatly appreciate you taking time to do this. It has been amazing to actually just have an opportunity to talk with you and to learn more about your personality and you as an individual. You are an incredible personality. You bring a lot to the table, and I would highly recommend everyone go and check out your entire catalog, because you've done some amazing work, and I would absolutely vouch for you in every facet of the producing world. So if anyone is looking and curious, man, I would definitely recommend you looking up Andreas, because he is a talent and a phenomenal ear. So again, thank you, my friend. If there's anything else you want to add on anything new you got upcoming or whatever, otherwise, again, give me any links to stuff that you want posted so I can get that in the description on stuff. But
Sure. I mean, just, first of all, thank you so much for talking to me, and just like keeping up this relationship we've built through the past 5 years or so. It's been amazing to me, and to learn you guys on more than just a professional level. And I'm so proud of all the work we've done together. I think it's some of my best, and some of the first things I'd show people, to show what I've been up to, and just to let you know that I really appreciate you guys as people as well, and that's definitely what keeps me interested in just keeping on working with you guys, is how you look at things and how you approach making music and talking about things on a grander perspective. So thank you for that. But I have a small website you can go check out. You can find me on Instagram under How Studio, or Facebook. I'm super bad at social media stuff. It's like
join the club.
yeah. It always falls to the wayside, because I mean, I feel like my time is taken up doing more important stuff, and
Right.
sometimes it's like I'm not of a generation like you guys that are just way second nature. So, but come by the website and check it out, and you can see some of the releases I've worked on, including you awesome guys' different albums. Yeah, thank you guys.
Well,
Thank you.
we love you, man, and that's kind of the bottom line, is you've made this very rewarding from our side. So
Absolutely a reason we refer to you as our fourth member, or sometimes fifth member, depending on. Probably just put you in the liner notes as that. Anyway.
That's a great honor. Couldn't be in a better position, really.
Thanks, my friend.
Thanks,
all right,
you
man.
guys.
Well, appreciate it, and we will talk to you again soon. Obviously, we've got a lot of work to do in the future, so looking forward to all that. And
Me too.
thanks again for taking the time, man. I greatly appreciate it, and much respect to you. So
Get some sleep.
yeah.
Will do. Thank you
All
for
right,
taking
man.
the time, guys.
Take care. Thank
ya.
you very much, man.
You too. Bye.
Bye.